The last resort. The metallic halls of New Geneva Station hummed with the usual bustle of diplomatic activity, but Dr. Nadia Patel felt anything but usual today. Her dark eyes scanned the data pad in her hands for the 100th time, reviewing the profiles of the Centauri delegation due to arrive within the hour. As Earth's leading xenobiologist specializing in Centauri physiology, she had been specifically requested for this assignment. What the brief didn't mention was why a routine diplomatic meeting required her expertise. The station's massive observation deck offered a stunning view of Earth below, but Nadia barely noticed it anymore. After 5 years stationed here, she had grown accustomed to the sight. What she couldn't grow accustomed to was the growing tension between humans and the Centauri, a proud warrior race whose alliance with Earth had always been precarious at best. Dr. Patel, they're arriving early. Lieutenant James Rodriguez's voice crackled through her comm unit. Docking Bay 3, 5 minutes. Nadia straightened her formal science division uniform and headed for the lifts. The Centauri were known for their punctuality, among other things. Their rigid social hierarchy, strict genetic purity laws, and complex honor system made them challenging allies, but their advanced technology made them invaluable in humanity's ongoing conflict with the Nexus Collective. The docking bay doors hissed open, revealing the sleek form of a Centauri diplomatic vessel. Nadia stood beside Ambassador William Hayes, watching as the airlock cycled. The first few Centauri emerged exactly as expected, tall, proud warriors with their characteristic silver-scaled skin and ceremonial armor. But the last figure to emerge made Nadia's breath catch. He was Centauri, but different. Where his companion's scales shimmered with uniform silver, his bore traces of deep blue, marking him as something their society considered aberrant. His movements carried the same warrior's grace, but there was tension in his shoulders, as if expecting rejection at any moment. Their eyes met briefly, and Nadia saw something she recognized, the look of someone who didn't quite belong. Dr. Patel, Ambassador Hayes whispered, "That's why you're here. Meet Kovacs, former elite guard commander and our key to preventing this alliance from collapsing." The lead Centauri diplomat, Supreme Envoy Xerix, approached with calculated steps. "Ambassador Hayes, we trust you understand the unique nature of this meeting." His eyes flickered briefly to Kovacs with barely concealed disdain. "Of course, Supreme Envoy," Hayes replied smoothly. "Dr. Patel is our foremost expert in Centauri biology. She'll be instrumental in addressing your concerns." Nadia stepped forward, offering the traditional Centauri greeting. "Honor to your house, Supreme Envoy." Her perfect pronunciation of their language earned her a slightly raised eyebrow from Xerix. "The human speaks well," he acknowledged, before turning back to Hayes. "We shall discuss the matter in private. Commander Kovacs will remain with your scientist. Perhaps she can determine if his condition can be corrected." As the diplomats departed, Nadia found herself alone with Kovacs. Up close, the blue variations in his scales were even more striking, like waves caught in starlight. He stood rigid, obviously uncomfortable with the scrutiny. "Your pronunciation is precise," he said finally, his voice deeper than she expected, "but your accent betrays study rather than immersion." Nadia smiled. 5 years of research, and you're the first Centauri to mention it. Everyone else just pretends not to notice." "I am not like everyone else," he replied, an edge of bitterness in his tone. "No," she agreed, studying the unique patterns in his scales. "You're not. And scientifically speaking, that's fascinating." He turned to her sharply, searching for mockery in her expression but finding only genuine interest. "My genetic modification was intended to enhance combat effectiveness against the Nexus Collective. Instead, it altered my appearance and marked me as impure. There is nothing fascinating about failure." "Failure?" Nadia shook her head. "From what I've read of your military record, you were one of the most successful commanders in recent Centauri history. One genetic modification doesn't change that. In Centauri society, it changes everything. He moved to the observation window, staring out at the stars. I am no longer permitted to lead warriors in battle, to marry, or to contribute to the genetic future of my people. I am here because they hope you can fix me, make me acceptable again. Nadia joined him at the window, choosing her words carefully. And what do you hope for, Commander Kovacs? He was silent for a long moment, his reflection in the glass showing an internal struggle. I hope to find a place where what I am does not define my worth. Something in his words resonated deep within Nadia. As a woman of Indian descent in a field dominated by others, she had spent years proving her worth beyond others' preconceptions. Then perhaps, she said softly, we should focus less on fixing and more on understanding. Kovacs turned to her, surprise evident in his expression. For the first time, his rigid posture relaxed slightly. You are not what I expected, Dr. Patel. Call me Nadia, she replied with a smile. And you haven't seen anything yet. Would you like to see my laboratory? We can start with actually studying your genetic modifications, rather than just assuming they need to be corrected. As they walked together toward the science section, Nadia couldn't shake the feeling that this assignment would change everything, for both of them. Breaking traditions. The soft blue glow of laboratory equipment cast dancing shadows across Nadia's workspace as she studied the genetic sequencing displayed on her holoscreen. 2 weeks had passed since the Centauri delegation's arrival, and what she discovered in Kovacs's modified genes was nothing short of revolutionary. These adaptations, she murmured, manipulating the 3D model with practiced gestures, they're not just mutations. They're improvements. Kovacs stood nearby, his tall frame casting a long shadow. Improvements that made me an outcast. That's because they're looking at it wrong, Nadia argued, enlarging a particular sequence. The blue scaling isn't a defect, it's a sign of enhanced neural pathways. Your reaction time, sensory processing, even cellular regeneration, they're all operating at levels far beyond standard Centauri baseline. And yet the Supreme Envoy would rather see me corrected than understand. His voice carried a weight of resignation that made Nadia's heart ache. A chime from the lab's communication panel interrupted them. Lieutenant Rodriguez's face appeared on the screen. Dr. Patel, we've got a situation. The Nexus Collective just hit one of our research outposts. Ambassador Hayes needs you both in the command center immediately. The command center was chaos when they arrived. Tactical displays showed a massive Nexus vessel approaching the disabled research station. Ambassador Hayes turned to them, his face grave. The station's containment systems are failing, he explained. They were researching Nexus bioweapons. If that ship retrieves those samples. How many survivors? Kovacs asked, already analyzing the tactical display. 32 crew members, trapped in the central hub. Our nearest rescue vessel is 4 hours out. Hayes ran a hand through his gray hair. They don't have that long. Nadia studied the station schematics, her mind racing. The Centauri diplomatic vessel could reach them in under an hour. Impossible, Supreme Envoy Xerix cut in, having just entered the room. We cannot risk our vessel on a human rescue mission. Those bioweapons are a threat to everyone, Kovacs argued, turning to his superior. Including the Centauri Alliance. Xerix's eyes narrowed. You forget your place, Commander. You no longer have the authority to make such decisions. No, Nadia stepped forward, but I do. As chief xenobiologist, I'm declaring this a level 1 biological threat. Under the terms of our alliance, that compels Centauri assistance. The room fell silent. Nadia's heart pounded, but she held Xerix's gaze. She was right, and they all knew it. The alliance treaty was clear on matters of biological warfare. Finally, Hayes cleared his throat. Supreme Envoy, Dr. Patel is correct. We need your ship. Xerix's scaled fingers twitched in barely contained frustration. Very well. But I will not risk Centauri warriors on this mission. I'll go, Kovacs said immediately. My modifications make me expendable, do they not? I'm going too, Nadia added. You'll need someone who understands the containment protocols. Within 20 minutes, they were aboard the Centauri vessel, racing toward the research station. In the ship's armory, Nadia struggled with the unfamiliar Centauri environmental suit while Kovacs checked his weapons. Your stance earlier, he said quietly, helping her adjust the suit's seals, it was unexpected. Someone once told me they hope to find a place where what they are doesn't define their worth, she replied with a small smile. Maybe this is that place. The rescue mission was brutal. They fought their way through sections of the station where artificial gravity had failed, dealing with both floating debris and the station's automated defense systems, which had gone haywire. Kovacs's enhanced abilities proved invaluable, his quick reactions and improved spatial awareness helping them navigate the chaos. When they finally reached the survivors, the Nexus ship was less than 30 minutes out. As Nadia worked to stabilize the containment units, Kovacs coordinated the evacuation. They were the last two aboard the Centauri vessel when the Nexus ship opened fire. Hold on! Kovacs shouted from the pilot's seat, his hands dancing across the controls. The ship rolled and twisted, avoiding the worst of the barrage. Nadia watched in amazement as he piloted them to safety, his modifications allowing him to process information and react faster than any normal pilot could have. Back at New Geneva Station, even Xerix couldn't deny the success of the mission. The survivors were safe, the bioweapons secured, and the Nexus Collective denied their prize. But it was the way the human crew and Centauri ship had worked together that had everyone talking. Later, in the quiet of her lab, Nadia found Kovacs staring at his reflection in a darkened screen. You proved something today, she said softly. Perhaps, he replied, turning to face her. But not to those who matter. You proved it to me, she said firmly. And to everyone who was on that mission. Sometimes change has to start small. He studied her for a long moment. You see the universe differently, Nadia Patel. When you look at me, you see possibilities where others see only flaws. Because I've learned that progress never comes from following traditions blindly, she stepped closer, not backing down from his intense gaze. It comes from being brave enough to question them. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken possibilities. They were from different worlds, different species, but in that moment, none of that seemed to matter. They had taken the first step toward breaking traditions, and there would be no going back. Battle of Hearts. The success of the research station rescue had earned Nadia and Kovacs an unexpected degree of freedom to work together. Over the next few weeks, her laboratory became their sanctuary, away from the judgmental eyes of both humans and Centauri. But peace never lasted long on New Geneva Station. These results are remarkable, Nadia said, reviewing the latest tests of Kovacs's enhanced abilities. Your neural pathways have actually continued to adapt. The modification isn't static, it's evolving. Kovacs leaned over her shoulder, his presence sending a warmth through her that she tried to ignore. Is that why the headaches have been getting worse? Before she could answer, the station's alert system blared to life. Red emergency lights pulsed as Ambassador Hayes's voice echoed through the corridors. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, all personnel to battle stations. They rushed to the command center, finding it in controlled chaos. The main viewscreen showed 3 Nexus vessels approaching the station, their distinctive biomechanical ships looking like massive predatory creatures. They're not here to negotiate, Hayes said grimly as they entered. We've intercepted communications. They're after our research on Centauri genetic modifications. Supreme Envoy Xerix's scales flickered with anger. You told them about the modifications? No, Nadia stepped forward, understanding dawning. They must have analyzed the data from the research station incident. They saw how Kovacs performed during the rescue. And now they want to replicate it, Kovacs finished, his voice hard. Create their own enhanced soldiers. The station shuddered as the first volley of Nexus weapons impacted the shields. Hayes turned to them. Our defense fleet is 20 minutes out. We need to hold them off. The Centauri diplomatic vessel is still in dock, Kovacs said. Let me take it out. I can buy us time. Absolutely not, Zarek snapped. You are not authorized to pilot Centauri vessels. With respect, Supreme Envoy, Nadia interrupted, he's the only one who can match their response time. Those ships are partially organic, they adapt to standard combat patterns. We need someone unpredictable. I'll go with him, she added, meeting Kovacs's surprised gaze. My research on his modifications might help us anticipate their tactics. Hayes looked between them and Zarek's. Supreme Envoy, we're out of options. Another impact rocked the station. Zarek's tail twitched in agitation before he finally nodded. Go. But know that if you fail, there will be consequences. They ran for the docking bay, their footsteps echoing through emptying corridors. As they prepared to board, Kovacs caught Nadia's arm. You don't have to come. This isn't your fight. All my life, I've studied the intersection of different species, trying to understand how we can work together, she replied, meeting his eyes. This is exactly my fight. The Centauri ship came alive under Kovacs's touch, systems responding to his enhanced neural patterns. They launched into space as the Nexus vessels began their second attack run. Their ships are biological, Nadia said, analyzing sensor data. They think like predators, they'll focus on what they perceive as the weakest target. Kovacs's hands flew over the controls. Then let's give them something to chase. What followed was unlike any battle Nadia had ever seen. Kovacs flew like he was part of the ship itself, his modifications allowing him to process and react to information faster than any normal pilot. He used the Nexus ship's biological nature against them, tricking them into targeting each other, exploiting their predatory instincts. But the Nexus adapted quickly. A blast caught their starboard engine, sending them spinning. Nadia's head struck her console, and she felt blood trickle down her forehead. Nadia. Kovacs's voice was thick with concern. He reached for her with one hand while still piloting with the other. I'm okay, she assured him, touching his hand briefly. Focus on flying. Their eyes met for a moment, and something passed between them, something that transcended species and tradition. In that moment, they both knew that whatever happened, there would be no going back to how things were before. A massive explosion lit up space behind them as the defense fleet finally arrived, catching the Nexus ships in a crossfire. Within minutes, the battle was over. Back on the station, the medical bay was crowded with minor casualties. As a medic treated Nadia's head wound, she watched Kovacs give his report to both Hayes and Zarek's. The Supreme Envoy's expression was unreadable, but there was no denying the results. They had saved the station. Later, they found themselves back in her lab, the adrenaline of battle fading but leaving something else in its wake. Kovacs touched her bandaged forehead gently. You could have died today. So could you, she replied softly. Was it worth it? For the first time since my modification, I felt whole. Not because of how I fought, but because of who I fought beside. His scales shimmered with emotion he couldn't quite hide. Nadia reached up, touching the blue patterns that marked him as different. Your modifications don't make you less, Kovacs. They make you more. I wish your people could see that. Perhaps they never will, he said. But you do. You always have. The distance between them seemed to shrink, the air charged with possibility. They were from different worlds, different species, but in that moment, it didn't matter. They had found something rare and precious, understanding, acceptance, and perhaps something more. But before either could act on the feelings growing between them, an urgent message flashed across Nadia's console. Her eyes widened as she read it. The Nexus ships, they weren't just after your genetic data. They were uploading a virus into our systems during the battle. Kovacs leaned in to read the message, his presence both comforting and electrifying. What kind of virus? I don't know, Nadia said, her fingers flying over the controls. But it's spreading through both human and Centauri networks. Whatever's coming, it's going to affect us all. They shared a look, knowing that their personal feelings would have to wait. A bigger battle was looming, one that would test not just their abilities, but the very foundations of both their societies. Defying destiny. The virus moved through New Geneva station systems like a living thing, adapting and evolving faster than the best human and Centauri cybersecurity experts could counter it. In Nadia's lab, holographic displays showed the spread in real time, networks falling dark one by one. It's not just corrupting data, Nadia explained to the emergency council, her voice tight with concern. It's learning, combining human and Centauri protocols in ways we've never seen before. Supreme Envoy Xerx's scales rippled with barely contained fury. This is what comes of sharing technology with humans. Our systems were secure until this alliance. With respect, Kovacs interjected, standing beside Nadia, the virus displays characteristics of Nexus biotechnology. They've been planning this attack for months, possibly years. Ambassador Hayes rubbed his temples. The question is, what are they planning? Why target both our species' networks simultaneously? Before anyone could respond, the station's lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency power. In the dim red glow, Nadia's holographic displays showed something new. The virus was converging, focusing its attack on one specific system. The containment labs, she whispered, then louder, they're targeting the containment labs. The bioweapons we recovered from the research station. If those containment fields fail, Kovacs finished, the entire station will be exposed. The room erupted into chaos as officials argued about evacuation protocols and containment procedures. But Nadia wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at her genetic research data, specifically the parts about Kovacs's modifications. Your neural adaptations, she said quietly to him, they don't just enhance your physical capabilities. They allow you to process information differently, to see patterns others can't. Kovacs's eyes widened as he understood. You think I could interface with the virus? Try to counter it directly? It's dangerous, she admitted. We'd have to connect you directly to the station's neural network. If anything went wrong, I would die, he said simply. But if we do nothing, everyone on this station dies. Their eyes met, volumes passing between them without words. Finally, Nadia turned to the council. We have a plan, but you're not going to like it. The argument that followed was fierce. Xerx was particularly opposed, claiming it would give Kovacs access to classified Centauri data. Hayes was concerned about the medical risks. But as more systems began to fail, they ran out of options. In Nadia's lab, she worked frantically to modify a neural interface while Kovacs prepared himself. The room was eerily quiet except for the hum of emergency power and the beeping of medical monitors. The interface goes against every safety protocol we have, she said, hands steady despite her fear. Once you're connected, the virus will see you as part of the network. It will attack you directly. Like a virtual battle, he replied, trying to lighten the mood. At least this time you won't hit your head. Nadia paused in her work, looking at him intently. Why are you really doing this? Your people have made it clear they don't value your life. Perhaps I'm not doing it for them. His gaze held hers. Perhaps I found something worth fighting for beyond tradition and duty. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken feelings. Then alarms blared, the containment fields were starting to fail. They were out of time. Ready? She asked, holding the neural interface. Wait, he caught her hand. If this doesn't work, you should know. Tell me after, she interrupted, her voice fierce. You're coming back. That's an order. The connection was instantaneous and overwhelming. Kovacs's consciousness was thrown into a digital storm of corrupted data and aggressive code. The virus attacked immediately, trying to overwhelm his neural patterns. But his modifications gave him an advantage. Where others saw chaos, he saw patterns. Where the virus adapted, he adapted faster. It became a battle of evolution, the virus learning from him even as he learned from it. In the physical world, Nadia watched his vital signs spike dangerously. She held his hand, monitoring the connection, ready to sever it if things went too far. Around them, the station's systems flickered between failure and recovery as the battle played out in virtual space. Hours passed. Kovacs's body was covered in sweat, his scales dulling from the strain. But slowly, system by system, he was pushing the virus back. When the final containment field stabilized, Nadia immediately disconnected him. He came back to consciousness gradually, his eyes focusing on her worried face. Did it work? See for yourself, she smiled through tears. She hadn't realized she was crying. The lab systems were coming back online, displays showing the virus being purged from the network. But their victory came with consequences. Analysis of the destroyed virus revealed that it had been designed specifically to target Kovacs's unique neural patterns. The Nexus had planned for him to interface with it, hoping to use him as a bridge to fully merge human and Centauri systems. You've exposed both our species to unprecedented risk, Xerix declared in the following council meeting. The Centauri High Command will not stand for this. You will return home for immediate genetic purification. No, Kovacs said simply. The room fell silent. No Centauri had ever directly refused a high command order. You dare. Xerix began, but Kovacs cut him off. I dare because I finally understand. My modifications weren't a mistake, they were the next step. The Nexus saw it. Dr. Patel saw it. We're stronger together, different but compatible. That's what they fear. Nadia stepped forward. The virus proved it. Kovacs's unique abilities allowed him to bridge our systems, to protect both species. That's not a weakness, it's an advantage we can't ignore. Hayes cleared his throat. The doctor has a point. Perhaps it's time we reconsidered our approach to genetic modification and interspecies cooperation. The debate that followed would change everything. But as Nadia and Kovacs left the council chamber, they knew the hardest battles, both political and personal, still lay ahead. Yet for the first time, they faced them not as human and Centauri, but as something new. Something that defied destiny itself. New horizons. The aftermath of the virus attack transformed New Geneva Station. What had once been a simple diplomatic outpost became the center of a revolution in human-Centauri relations. In her laboratory, now expanded and filled with both human and Centauri scientists, Nadia reviewed the latest results from their joint research program. The application of Kovacs's neural patterns has improved our computational systems by 300%, she reported to the mixed team. And that's just the beginning. But not everyone embraced change. Opposition grew on both sides. Human purists feared the influence of alien genetics. Centauri traditionalists saw their careful genetic lineages threatened. And in the shadows, the Nexus Collective watched and waited. Kovacs entered the lab, his blue-tinged scales gleaming under the lights. The Centauri High Command has made their decision. They're sending a delegation. Nadia's heart sank. Despite their achievements, the High Command had been notably silent about Kovacs's defiance. Their sudden interest couldn't be good. When? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Tomorrow. They're already en route. He moved closer, lowering his voice. Whatever happens, I won't let them undo what we've built here. Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. But these weren't the usual warning signals, they were different, distorted. The virus, Nadia whispered, rushing to her console. It's back. But how? Not back, Kovacs corrected, studying the patterns. Evolution. The fragments we destroyed, they were seeds. They've been growing, changing, waiting. The station systems began to fail, but differently this time. Instead of attacking the networks, the virus was merging them, forcing human and Centauri technologies to combine in dangerous ways. It's trying to finish what it started, Nadia realized. A complete merger of our systems, our species, it would destroy us both. Ambassador Hayes and Supreme Envoy Xerix rushed into the lab. The Nexus fleet has dropped out of hyperspace, Hayes reported grimly. 6 ships, including something we've never seen before. The main screen showed a massive biomechanical vessel, larger than any previous Nexus ship. Its surface rippled with organic technology, adapting and changing even as they watched. They're not here to attack, Kovacs said, his enhanced senses reading the patterns. They're here to harvest. Once the virus completes the forced merger, we'll be perfect specimens for their experiments, Nadia finished. The ultimate combination of human adaptability and Centauri strength. The station shuddered as the Nexus ships took position around it. The virus accelerated its work, systems merging faster, causing chaos throughout the station. In the distance, they could hear explosions and screaming. The Centauri delegation will be here within the hour, Xerix said. Our fleet comes with them. We don't have an hour, Hayes countered. That virus is tearing us apart now. Nadia looked at her research data, then at Kovacs. Maybe that's the answer. Not fighting the merger, but controlling it. Your modifications, they're stable because they were guided, purposeful. Kovacs understood immediately. You want to merge with me? Connect our neural patterns directly? If we can demonstrate controlled integration, she argued, we might be able to show the virus a different path. Force it to adapt to our pattern instead of its own. The risk. Hayes started. Is less than doing nothing, Nadia cut him off. We've spent months studying Kovacs's modifications. I've already developed theoretical protocols for human neural enhancement. Absolutely not, Xerix declared. The High Command. We'll have to adapt, Kovacs said firmly. Like we all must. They worked quickly, modifying the neural interface for human compatibility. Around them, the station continued to deteriorate as the virus pushed systems beyond their limits. This will change you, Kovacs said softly as Nadia prepared for the connection. There's no going back. She took his hand, feeling the smooth scales against her skin. I don't want to go back. Forward is the only way. The connection was like nothing either had experienced. Their minds merged not in chaos like the virus intended, but in harmony. Human intuition met Centauri precision. Individual strengths remained distinct but complementary. Through their combined consciousness, they reached out to the station's networks. The virus attacked, trying to force its own version of merger, but they offered an alternative. A path of controlled integration, of willing partnership rather than forced combination. The virus, programmed to seek optimal adaptation, couldn't ignore the superior model they presented. Slowly, system by system, it began to follow their pattern instead of its own. In space, the massive Nexus ship reacted to the change. Its organic components, linked to the virus, began to shift and transform. The harvest they had planned became impossible as their carefully designed integration protocols fell apart. The Centauri delegation arrived to find their world already changed. The virus, now transformed, had created something unprecedented, a true symbiosis of human and Centauri technology. And at its heart, Nadia and Kovacs demonstrated what was possible when different species chose to grow together. The High Command will not accept this, Xerix warned, even as the Nexus fleet retreated in disarray. They'll have to, Hayes replied, watching as human and Centauri crews worked seamlessly together to stabilize the transformed station. The alternative is extinction. The Nexus won't stop trying to force evolution. We adapt together, or we die separately. Later, in the quiet of their lab, Nadia and Krovax stood at their familiar observation window. The neural connection had faded, but something remained, an understanding that went beyond words. "What happens now?" she asked, watching the stars. "Now." Krovax took her hand, his blue scales shimmering in the starlight. "Now we show them what's possible. Not just human and Centauri working together, but becoming something new. Something better." "Together," she agreed, leaning against him. Outside, the stars seemed brighter, full of new possibilities. They had defied tradition, destiny, and biology itself. But more importantly, they had shown both their peoples a new way forward. The path wouldn't be easy, change never was. But they would face it as they had faced everything else, side by side, different but stronger together. In the end, it wasn't about being human or Centauri, modified or pure. It was about choosing to see beyond the boundaries others set, about finding worth in difference rather than conformity. And in that choice lay the seeds of a future neither species could have imagined alone.